It's MPJ Rock Album Review Time! Welcome back to yet another wicked show. I'm your host Nigel. Welcome to my guests, to Ian, to Simon, to Trish and to William. Dun, dun, hello! Hello! What's the show all about? We are reviewing the latest rock albums. We put them head to head in a battle of the albums to see which of one we would buy. But more importantly, we rate them out of 5. And if they get a score of 20 or more, they get into our Hall of Fame and maybe even to our shortlist for Album of the Year, which is, let me tell you, if you've been watching and listening to the following the show, it's hotting up. Some amazing albums coming out here. Will one of today's offerings get to that level? Who do we have? We have Winterage and their album Nekyia. Is that how you pronounce it? And we have Withering Scorns and the Prophets of Demise. Right, without further ado, let's start with Winterage. Winterage is a symphonic power metal band with strong influence in classic, Irish and medieval music. The band is characterised by the presence of violinist Gabriel Bouchy, who's also the founder and orchestral arranger, and by the use of real symphonic orchestra during the album's recordings. The third album, Nekyia, was released on the 17th of July, which is why we're reviewing it, with even more, and I love this, bombastic and metal sound. The new dramatic side of the band is extremely influenced by epic cinematic orchestral sound like Two Steps from Hell, opera music, and through which the metal impact has been strengthened. And from high-pitched notes to dramatic operatic vocals, from folk instruments to mighty epic orchestral sound, from the drums, blast beats to extremely fast guitar riffs and solos, this album reveals a new sound of the band which is destined to forge the beginning of a new chapter. Simon, gonna start with you because you introduced me to symphonic, operatic metal in the form of Camelot a few years ago. Yeah. So, come on, Winterage, was this your jam, as you like?
If anyone has seen any of my reviews before, intro tracks. So, 2 minutes, 31 second intro track of just pure orchestral instrumentation, and for once I kind of enjoyed it because the payoff was there. Similar to the Firebird, keeps that same tune going. There's no pause, there's no break, it doesn't drop and then build back in. It clearly would be used in some kind of like live performance or something, so it really like smashed into that track, and it feeds off of that build up, and it truly feels like the opening of some epic tale. And I'm bopping along to the violin and the guitars, and then the vocals kicked in. They're not bad, but at times those vocals are not great. The orchestration sells this theatrical sound, and the chorus just sells even harder, but some of the verses just don't seem to gel with that backing music. In Newman it worked well, but in Nekyia the vocals seem strained almost, and it's this imbalance throughout the album that has kept it from keeps me from giving it a high score, because otherwise it has everything I want from like dramatic, operatic, theatrical power metal, but it's just his vocals. I'm just not sure. I don't know. There's just times when those vocals just don't seem to work for me. So there we go.
I'm going to come back to you on that, Simon, and I'll explain why that is. In my opinion, that is my humble opinion. Trish, come on.
Hey. So Winterage, Nekyia. I did not know what to expect from the name of the band, straight the title, etc. Although the album cover is very dark and mysterious, which is how the album starts with Apertio ad profundum, orchestral and drama. Then it abruptly ends, and with force you are thrown into symphonic power metal drumming with some violins thrown in and a massive guitar riff in the middle. With the tale of the album being told in operatic style, I love the Celtic fast track Newman, and oh my god, the haunting, powerful operatic La Fonta Ascenza gave me goosebumps. For me, the album got stronger from Newman onwards with the songs and the music that would be fitting in Pirates of the Caribbean with fast violins. You can imagine pirates swashbuckling but then the more intense songs and instrumentals in Last of the Mohicans. I have to say, I found some of the music score really made me emotional. And if music can do that to you, then you know it's really reached deep within you, not just surface level. This is a standout, powerful metal album that everyone needs to have in their collection.
Powerful stuff. William, did this reach deep into your soulless soul and raise you up?
I'd say so. So I want to start by saying, of all the albums we've listened to, this is definitely the most symphonic of all the symphonic metal that we've had to been symphonied by. I've never said, I don't want to say the word symphonic again, that was too much. So it's the most symphonic metal to ever symphony arias. So this is a pretty good album. The funniest thing that I find is obviously, they say how the whole strong influence of classical, Irish, and medieval things, but like the first 5 or so things, it's nothing to do with Irish or Celtic folklore. It's quite funny, Simurgh, I think, is an Iranian thing from their mythology. Hecate is obviously Greek goddess. Nekyia, I think, is something from Greek mythology as well. Numen, it's some kind of Latin phrase. I think that means divinity or something. No, not very Celtic there. They've lied to me. Give me my Celtic stuff. So this is one of those albums where I often, my music listening is I've got a quite fancy pair of Bluetooth over-ear headphones. So I'll listen in bed, laid back, eyes closed, headphones on, just to fully get myself into music. And this is definitely one of those albums where that's, for me, the best way to listen to it, because it really immerses you in this world. Until the end, which really confused me, because I was all listening to symphonic metal, and suddenly the Dance Macabre started playing, and I was really confused while I was listening to Dance Macabre, which I didn't hate. I think it's a very nice classical track. It's cool. It's good. As we always say, intro tracks, love them or hate them. This is one of the few cases where it does benefit it, because it does lead you straight into that first song, with it keeping the same kind of sound to it. However, outro tracks of just symphonic-y, just music, I am less keen on. I think they could have just ended it with Metamorphosis and just ended off with that last bit of Dance Macabre. I think that would have been a really good, solemn kind of ending for the album, written this way. But I think having that last track on there didn't really benefit it for me. But overall, solid. Like Simon said as well, with the vocals, there was something wrong to me. I thought at most I can't remember the track name, it was the one with the very Italian name in the middle, where it was just like a proper classical symphonic track, an operatic thing, where because it didn't have the music supporting his vocals as much, it really became apparent, it didn't sound right to me. Like, it sounded like his voice was kind of struggling a bit with it, or didn't sound as right. Maybe be that I'm not really used to just hearing operatic vocals like that being sung. It might sound right, but for me it just wasn't. It was it was a bit of a detriment to it.
Okay.
It needed the music behind it. But yeah.
Ian, if I had to pick anybody in this quintet of people, I would have picked you as this with the potentially, though I can never tell with you lot, tick your box.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. For me, this was an expert blend and an absolutely blissful marriage of opera, symphony, and power rock. I am not afraid to go down the rabbit hole of listening to rock cover versions, and the majority of them, no, just not. It's like the concept is great, but the final result is just actually no. You should have realised it wasn't a good idea. I think something hasn't been mentioned. I think this is, and my understanding of a concept album is that it follows a story, right? This follows a story. And I kind of agree with Will when he said that Metamorphosis, musically, it would have been the better song to finish on. But in terms of a story, it leaves you hanging. Because this story takes you all around the world, which is why you get that big blend, which is why the Celtic lean isn't consistent throughout the whole album, because Celtic music isn't consistent throughout the whole world. You know, there are different feelings, and you go on this absolute journey, and I believe it's someone that gets enchanted by the devil or some real anti being, and in the end it's defined as the White Leviathan grabs them and drags them down, or they've turned into the White Leviathan. And you've just gone in this amazing journey of opera, of symphony, of rock, and the operatic song in the middle, the La Fonte de Descenza. Oh my word, absolutely, like tears, complete tears. First time I heard that, and finally the White Leviathan. Just when you think everything, you know, evil has won. Bosh, you've got resurrectio ad mundum, resurrection of the world. You know, it's the world's redemption, and Metamorphosis shows that change. And what a use of a cover version! I have never heard such a good cover done in the metal genre as the Dance Macabre in this. Absolutely sublime use of a cover.
What's that a cover of, mate?
The Dance Macabre. So, do you remember Jonathan Creek, the TV series? It was a theme tune to that. I can't remember who did it, but it's. Just look it up, Nigel.
No, I don't distrust you or believe you. I'm just curious as to what that was a cover. I didn't know it was a cover.
I think Will's looking it up.
Of course he is.
Yeah, it's.
I'm shocked that people don't know the Dance Macabre. This is a shocking piece.
Hey, it's a journey. We're on a journey. Sometimes my paths have led
in the
in different
1800s.
directions.
Okay, I'm going to build us back, because that crescendo that I've built us to is that Dance Macabre. It's like taking the macabre that the White Leviathan finds himself in, or the person has been taken over by the White Leviathan, and then pow, cracks through, breaks the metamorphosis, transforms into something that saves the world, basically lifts the world from its own evil and wrongdoing. And I mean, obviously musicals are my number one genre, and this, just the journey, the storytelling, just blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. Everything I love.
I wholly, heartily agree with Ian. This album is a tour de force. It really is. La Fonte Descenda is a pure operatic. I know where you're coming from, Will, because you go, should this be on an album like this? But I think musically, some of the haunting melodies that kind of accompanied it were just, you couldn't fault it. His voice was just, oh my God, he would have been on the West End singing operatic. It was just tour de force. It was a phenomenal performance. And my problem with that is that you go, should that be on a rock album? But in terms of the concept of the whole album, it fitted with absolutely perfection. And it sends, every time I listen to it, it sends goose pimples up there. And then I love the Country of Newman, which is more kind of that melodic kind of sing-along kind of song that you can kind of get into. Oh my God, Dark Enchantment. Oh, God's sake, if you ever want to set a scene with Dark Enchantment in terms of, I mean, this was just mind-blowing. Now, I'm going to come to the point of Simon with that vocals. In terms of trying to storytell, on occasions, he did sound like a €6,000 vampire, okay? Because when he slowed it down and went into that lower registry, in comparison to when he hits those notes up there, it was a bit. I chuckled. The first few listens to the album, I just had a bit of a laugh. Really, you sound like a freaking 6-year-old vampire, mate. And it could have been, in terms of a lesson, bringing in another singer, like we saw Visions of Atlantis, and the play up between the male and female vocalists is absolute perfection. And you think, well, and he had some backing, some female vocals come in that one. So maybe in terms of bringing somebody in that can hit some of those lower things to try and balance that out a little bit. brilliant. It did not spoil my enjoyment of this album. It did not in a sense, but it was just like the more I listened to it, the more actually I went, yeah, kudos, mate, for trying to storytell and to change your pitch in terms of trying to do that storytelling. And some people use growlo, which is totally ridiculous, to try and counter that kind of balance from that side of things. But yeah, this in terms of an operatic, it is symphonic, but it's more operatic with some symphonic stuff in there. It's a masterpiece in terms of symphonic operatic metal. Right. Unless no knows about this, people, if you want to listen to that, there is metal in there. I mean, some of the guitar riffs and stuff in there are absolutely golden, and it's a beautifully balanced album in terms of that sphere. This, in terms of operatic metal. It's not going to be impossible to beat because I think it can be better with some of the lower range vocals, but it's going to be an album that's going to stand out there. If you're into your operatic symphonic metal, this is an album that's going to be incredibly hard to beat. And the guy's voice, particularly on the higher range stuff, is phenomenal. But just get somebody else in to slow the lower registry if you want to tell a story. But don't use growlo as William and Simon would love you to do, because
do more growlo.
But
do you know what? It's sometimes when we're listening to when I'm listening to albums for the podcast, one album comes along and dominates, and you really have to fight hard to make sure you give the other albums airplay as well. Because the temptation to play,
just keep playing it.
Is really
just keep listening. Yeah, absolutely. And
I could have done the whole month just listening and exploring this album easily. Yeah. So if you ever want to if we interview these people, I would love to, because I'll happily research this.
You never know.
Love to be part of that.
Never know. It's interesting because equally, you're absolutely right in terms of giving stuff airplay. And yeah, there's albums that you just want to keep playing again, but you just get bored of them. So, but one of the other things, criteria in terms of whatever, we watched Visions of Atlantis, which was just probably one of the best concerts I've seen in my entire life, and it was in a small venue down in Southampton, and you do it because you want to. I could see myself wanting to be front of stage with this and experiencing this album live and this performance live. I think it would be amazing. So put it out there. Okay, right. Well, it's going to be hard to follow, but Withering Scorn with the Prophets of Demise. Who are they then? Prophets of Demise. Withering Scorn formed in 2020 by brothers, so a very new band, by brothers Glenn and Sean Drover, who have played together previously in heavy metal icons Megadeth, as well as Elysion, and a pair have joined Joe Demise on bass, who played in Fate's Warning for 14 years on multiple records and world tours, a German native Henning bass and vocals, who is also known for his work with Metallium, Firewind and others. The potent combination of these four incredible talent musicians joined forces has given birth to an uncompromising heavy metal record in the form of their debut offering, Prophets of Demise. Oh, right. Well, certainly a quartet with some pedigree behind them. So, will it be the Prophets of Demise in this Battle of the Bands, or will they rise up to fight the Winterage then? So, Trish, let's start with you then. Withering Scorn. Are you going to scorn it, or are you going to do something different? Talk to me.
Okay. So this album definitely hits you in the face with thrash metal. This is the metal that I really struggle to understand and appreciate, as it is so heavy for me personally. I gave it a couple of listens at work and I still couldn't get to grips with it or tell you what the album was about. So I downloaded it to my phone and was going to give it another chance and listen while I was out on my usual walk after work to see if I got a different perspective, but only a smidge. It definitely sounded clearer, and there were two songs I could say that were palatable to my ears, that being Ancient Desire and Eternal Screams. But the rest just too heavy for me in some respects, no matter how many times I listened. That doesn't mean they aren't masters of their genre of rock. It is clear they are, having been in Megadeth. Unfortunately, just not for me.
Oh, it's a tiny bit of Scorn, but not bad. Now,
bit of a demise, really.
Bit of demise in your eyes. Will they rise up? Will the prophet of metal in the form of William Hall say something different? William, talk to me.
I find it amusing how Trish said the words "more pleasant listening" and then "eternal screams." I too find eternal screaming a very pleasant thing to my ears, as it should be as a metalhead. So I obviously know nothing about this band because they've just formed. So them being their first time, I did a little Google on them the other day, and it just amused me because it's the only thing about them on Google is Withering Scorn is an intriguing project. So it's definitely something. Intriguing, maybe not so much to me. It's as we know, when it comes to metal, I like the new stuff. I don't like the old stuff. And for me, reading that they had the ex-Megadeth people like that, for me was really quite apparent. It does sound like my least favourite thing, as I say too much. It's people trying to do old metal but now. And that's all this is to me. It's just thrash metal, isn't it? It's they can play instruments, they can do it well, but it's just not for my ears.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah, no. As I say, we rate it for our listening pleasure. Talking about listening pleasure, bless the dulcet tones of Ian, which always gives us pleasure. Withering Scorn, my friend.
Thank you very much. Apologies, Trish. I had a bit of a coughing fit. I had to go and get a drink on right through your talking. Sorry. I enjoyed the album, but I didn't like it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it's
perfect sense.
When you said about the Megadeth connection, I get it, because going back to those, the big hair 80s and the rock and the 90s, I never got Megadeth back then either. Thrash metal, that hard edge metal, it has never really done it for me. The Megadeth connection, I never got Megadeth back in the big hair 80s rock period. Obviously their fan base says the story of them, but I just never understood why they were as big and phenomenal when there were big bands like Metallica and Maiden and stuff like that. I just didn't get it. And I don't get this album either. It wasn't one for me. There was nothing really stand out on it. Again, I had listened to it straight after Winterage, so maybe that big high, and the album hasn't got that same sort of production and variety, and so I did leave it for quite a while and listened to this in its entirety on its own, with listening to nothing else, and it's good. There's nothing. They haven't done anything wrong. It's not a bad album. It's just not to my taste, and nothing stand out. So I don't want to diss it. I can't praise it either. That's where I stand with it.
I know how that feel because when I come to Simon, I don't want to diss him, but I don't want to praise him either. It's fair enough. Simon, Withering Scorn, did it speak to you, my friend?
Withering Scorn, I'm going to say that this album, this is great background metal, which is like a really backhanded compliment, but that's my best way of summing it up. The title track, Prophets of Demise, full of heavy riffs, big crunchy heavy metal, and the vocals complement the guitars and the drums. Dark Reflection, cool guttural vocal moments. Eternal Screams, epic closer for what is actually a short album at just 8 tracks. And from there, the album was pretty much on the same path. It's got these sort of churning out these technical riffs and solid drum beats and these kind of cool lyrics that match the style. But I did find myself drifting out of the music. I didn't want to turn it off, but I wasn't focusing on it. It was just it's just playing. And I'm enjoying it, but I'm not really in the moment with it. I'd almost call it easy listening metal, which is, I think, it's a great term. So yeah, I liked the album. I kind of hope Withering Scorn actually, if they do another album, that we get it back on the show and to see if anything's changed. Yeah, easy listening metal.
On hit us with it, Nigel.
Well, just like I can't say how you could possibly remotely say this is easy to listen to, because it's a very angry album. Super angry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's really chill.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It's pretty relaxing, to be fair.
For you guys, maybe it was thrilled. For me, it was just really. It was really powerful. I mean, it was well done. It was incredibly well produced and incredibly well done. It was incredibly powerful, banging kind of heavy metal. It wasn't quite my cup of tea, but I think I didn't. I enjoyed it to a point, but it was just a bit too angry for me. It was certainly not. I would certainly not class this as easy listening. I suppose if you like that sort of genre and you want it on the background, I kind of get it. But yeah, it was okay. Actually, it was just well produced, well good. It was head banging. Vocally, it was a bit too angry for me. I wouldn't mind that tone it down. But musically and melodically, on times, some nice shit in there. Some really nice stuff in there. And I don't think it was particularly regurgitated. I thought it was heavily influenced by what William was saying for certain. But yeah, solid album. Solidly good. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, but better than average. We've had some terrible albums out here, but yeah, it's good. I mean, yeah, hey, and I apologise because sometimes I only listen to one track and I don't know how the hell I match these two up because they're just... But which one will we go to buy? Let's find out then, shall we? Dun, dun, dun. Will any of them reach our hallowed grounds of the Hall of Fame, get into Album of the Year? I hope so. Right, okay, Simon, we started with you, so let's continue on with that. Winterage.
3.5.
What? 3.5? 3. I am in shock, my friend. That low registry vampiric singing obviously put you off then from that side of things. Trish?
It did.
5.
5. William?
Loved it.
So 4. It's just a 4.
4.
Yeah. 4.
Well, you guys led me to this genre, and yeah, you're not continuing that journey with me.
But Wesley put me off too much.
Okay.
Broke me out of it too much.
It's all about our listening pleasure. Ian, I've already written your score down, but confirm.
No, you haven't. It's a 6.
6! That makes up for that. But a 3.5. There we go. I'm presuming a 5. Let's hear it from your dulcet tones.
Yep. Yeah, 5.
5.
Absolutely.
An obvious 5 from me as well. It's just a brilliant album. So it's a big score. It's 19. It's 22.5. But it's up there. We are being. You guys have just smashed the Hall of Fame. You've added doubled it this month. That's a huge score, and certainly congratulations to Winterage. Who knows now? Maybe after listening to this, they'll deem us with an interview. Who knows? You never know. Right. Okay. Well, let's find out Withering's score then, Simon.
3.5.
3.5. And which would you purchase, Simon?
See, I'm going to have to go with the tried and tested method of which cover is cooler. And it's got to be Winterage.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Trish.
2.
And William.
Well, we rate it for our listening pleasure, and I unfortunately did not get any pleasure from listening to this. So, unfortunately, I don't think I can give it a point, I'm afraid.
You got your 0 out.
I got nothing from it. It did literally nothing to me, apart from made me think how much better music is now than it used to be.
That is incredibly
Sue
harsh.
me.
I will. My lord, you'll be in touch first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning. Ian?
I'm going to give this a 1.5, I'm afraid.
Well, I'm right alongside. Apart from the Winterage, me and Simon have been fairly aligned for the whole show, and we are once again aligned with a 3.5. So 7, 9, 10.5. 10.5. Thanks to that evil William there, but there we go. Lawyers be in touch, but there we are. Anyway, so Winterage wins hands down in terms of the album we would like to buy, but that's not saying that I think it was a solidly good album for its genre. However, congratulations to Winterage once again for reaching into our Hall of Fame and potentially getting to our shortlist for Album of the Year. Who knows what will come out at the end of the year when we introduce other people to this sound. So thank you very much. If you do like the show and you like what you hear, please encourage us with your likes and subscribes. That'd be amazing. We're going to carry on anyway, but please hit it. And thank you to my wonderful panel today, to Ian, to Simon, to Trish, and to William. So keep safe, keep on rocking, and bye for now, everybody.
Bye. See you next month.